Hello everyone, thanks for joining me today on a tutorial on the Practice Perfect software. Today we're going to go over a few advanced items within the system or topics that you may not have heard before. Today we're going to talk about the scheduler and about putting the provider type on the therapist's name. If you look at the scheduler on the screen, Heather Fraser has a bracket beside their name indicating they're a PT. If you find this helpful to indicate several therapists and their disciplines, you can do so under the Housekeeping drop-down list, under Contacts, Provider Types. You can add, modify, edit, delete anything in this list. Green plus sign will add items to the list. A flag and trash will remove items from the list. Once you have the items in this list, your next step is to go back through Housekeeping, Contacts, Providers. For each therapist that you want to list in your system or list in the scheduler, you will simply double-click on their name, and on the bottom left-hand side of the screen, you can indicate the provider type from your drop-down list. If you select a provider type for each of your therapists, back in the scheduler, it will reflect your code description for that provider type in the scheduler. The next item we'll talk about today is contact logs. From time to time, you may want to record conversations or contacts that you've made on the file. You can also use this section for reminders. For an example, I'm going to tell the system, in this case, my patient would like to charge their MasterCard on a monthly basis for any charges they haven't paid yet. The first step is under Housekeeping, Tasks, Contact Log Categories. In this section, we will preload the software with probably 5 or 6 different options, but you can add any specific categories here by clicking on the green plus sign or flagging and trashing any categories. These categories are how you're going to file your conversations. The next step. Every patient, regardless of where you start in the system, every patient has the phone icon called a contact log. Within the contact log, to add a new log is a green plus click. Choose your comment category. Enter your date and possible description. And choose a very specific follow-up date, if that's applicable. In my particular example, I'm not going to choose a follow-up date because I want this to reappear every month when I pull a list of people who need month-end billing. Say OK when complete to store that information. This screen will then always show you the contacts that have happened on the patient's file. To open one, simply flag and click the Edit pencil. We can then run reports on these contact logs. Under the Reports drop-down list, Tasks and Clinical section, and then the Contact Log Follow-up Report. This pop-up will appear. Choose your specific date range. For example, if I would like to see all patients to the end of October that have a monthly billing set up, I will choose my date range. I will ask the system to include items without a specific follow-up date. And then I'll ask very specifically for my category of month-end billing. I'm not interested in seeing any other category. If you have multiple locations, ensure that you choose which locations you want to search for. Hit the Preview button, and anyone that meets that criteria should show up as a to-do list. If you don't want that patient to appear in your monthly follow-up in the future, pretend they're discharged or perhaps they're no longer coming to your clinic, simply go back to their contact log, edit that log, and mark it as completed. Next up, we're going to talk about tasks. tasks are handy if you want to have a list of items that need to be completed on each file, somewhat like a checklist or an audit list that each file would need to go through. Under the Housekeeping drop-down list, and under your Task section again, we'll go to the Tasks. Whatever you decide to put in this listing, and remember a green plus click will help you add to this list, a flag and trash will help you to remove. Whatever items you have listed in this area, each of your patients will have this same list on their file. Each patient, in their profile of information, has an Incidents tab. In their Incident tab, there's a Task tab. As you can see, all those items that we listed under Housekeeping tasks are appearing against my patient's file. I can then make comments, set a date, or indicate that that task was not applicable. Every incident has a Task tab. The next topic we're going to talk about today is discharging our patients. Discharging our patient occurs when the patient is no longer coming to the clinic. There may be several reasons for the discharge, and that's what we're going to enter into the system today. It all starts again under Housekeeping and our Discharge section. Under the Discharge section, we have the reasons for discharge, which we call the discharge status, and then we have survey questions, if that's applicable. Let's start with the Discharge Status section. In here, we will preload the system with a few common discharge reasons. You can add anything into this section by clicking the green plus sign, or flag and trash anything in this section that is not applicable for you. These will be the reasons that we will have to choose from, or the options that we'll have to choose from whenever we try to discharge a patient. Also back under Housekeeping, Discharge, Surveys. If you send your patient some type of survey, customer satisfaction or customer experience survey, you can add your survey questions to this area. These questions will show up on every patient's file where you have the opportunity to record the results. The next step is then discharging the patient. If we're in the patient's profile of information, we can simply go to the Incidents tab, make sure you're on the correct incident, and then go to the Discharge tab. The Discharge tab, as you can see, contains a discharge date. Entering a date in this area will discharge your system from the system. Discharge status is the reason that we're discharging the patient, discharge provider, and possibly a discharge comment. You can also record if the survey was sent and returned. On the right-hand side are your survey questions, and you can record your response. A second way to discharge your patient is to find your patient on your patient listing, flag your patient, and go to the Discharge tab from here. The Discharge tab is minimal information. This is called a quick discharge. Also on this screen, you can tell the system to delete any future appointments for this patient that might have been scheduled. A third way to discharge your patient is to flag your patient from the patient listing and go to their Activities by Document section. By completing the document called Discharge Summary, this will discharge your patient from the system. The reason for discharge is listed near the bottom end of this report. Remember, when you discharge your patient from the system, they will no longer appear as an active patient. Discharge patients will appear specifically under the Discharge Patient listing or perhaps the All Patient listing. In the All Patient listing, anyone that is a light gray color is a discharged patient. An active patient are indicated in black. Our next topic is very specific to our U.S. clients. We're going to look next at our cciEdit listing. Again, under Housekeeping, Financial, cciEdit Listing. This listing are combinations of CPT or treatment codes, and if those combinations are allowed but require a specific modifier. The system comes preloaded with the most common combinations. These may change, however, based on your state or need. You can add anything you want into this section by clicking the green plus sign, or flag and trash any combination of codes that's not applicable for your clinic. Once you establish your cciEdit listing, then you can tell the system which payers abide by that cciEdit tracking. Clicking on the word Payers on the left-hand side of your screen, double-click on a specific payer and go to the Billing Preferences tab. You can enable cciEdit checking for the specific payers that are applicable. Please note that the system by default does not enable cciEdit checking for any payer. You need to tick the box for the appropriate payers. The cciEdit checking will automatically insert the required modifier. For example, in this example on the screen, I've added a 97112 treatment code as the primary code. I'm about to add a 97002 as the secondary code. The system has recognized that's a cciEdit combination, and it's inserting the 59 modifier for me. The next item we'll talk about is integrating a specific link to either a document or a website perhaps on your Operations tab on the left-hand side of your screen. You can add items to the Operations tab per username and password. To do so, go to the Settings drop-down list, and from here go to Other Settings. From the Other Settings pop-up window, go to the Integration tab. Simply type out what your link display name will be, and on the right hand side either enter your website or link to go to, and the link, remember, can be either a website or a document. You can link your shortcut to a document by clicking on the yellow file folder and then simply choosing the document on your computer that you wish to link to. Say OK when complete. You should now see that on the left-hand side of the screen, I have integrated a link to an Office Ally website and a link to a document on my computer. To access those two items, simply click on your link, and the link should take you to the appropriate site. Okay, the next topic we're going to explore is the waiting list listed on your Operations tab. By clicking the word Waiting List, this will activate the list of patients you have waiting for a specific appointment date or time. To add any patients to the wait list, it's a green plus click on your function bar. To edit an existing entry, simply double-click on the patient that's already listed. Some of the fields of information that you will have to indicate when either entering or editing a patient in your wait list is the name of the patient, the incident or claim that they are waiting for the appointment on, and the request date. The request date can either be the date they made the request or the date of the specific date and time they're waiting for. The expiry date should indicate when it is okay to expire this request. If you do have an expiry date, the patient will disappear from your waiting list on the expiry date. If you have multiple locations, please ensure the correct location for where you're wanting to book the appointment at. The duration and any specific provider. If the provider is not specific, make sure you indicate any provider. You can also include the type of appointment they are waiting for. This drop-down list is controlled by you. Under the Housekeeping drop-down list, Scheduler, Waiting List Types. Anything that you indicate in that area will appear here on your wait list as an option as the type of appointment they're waiting for. It's very important on the right-hand side of the screen to indicate what specific days of the week the patient is waiting for. If they will accept any day of the week, you must choose any day. Same for the start or end time of the appointment. If they literally will take any appointment date, time, then you need to indicate any start time and any end time. Otherwise, you need to indicate a specific start and end time. These entries will ensure your patient is added to the wait list. From the wait list, if you had multiple patients, you could flag all patients, run a report, and ask for the patients that are specifically waiting perhaps for a Monday appointment with a specific therapist at a specific location. The preview should show us any matches to that criteria. If we want the system to automatically check the wait list anytime we cancel or move an appointment in our scheduler, we can do so by the Settings drop-down list. By clicking on the Customize Schedule section, the last tab on the first screen, you need to enable the system to check the wait list when an appointment is being deleted, canceled, or moved. What that feature does is back in your scheduler, should I move or modify or cancel an appointment, the system should then automatically check our wait list. And it's telling us that this patient meets the criteria, and it's asking if I want to book that patient into this appointment time slot. If I do, just click on the Book Appointment slot. This patient now on our screen has taken over the appointment. Back in the wait list, that patient will disappear from your wait list. Another alternative for booking someone through the wait list is to choose their name on the wait list and go to the icon for searching available appointment times. In this section, complete what available appointment times you're looking for. As an example, I can tell the system I'm looking for any Monday 9 through 5 with any of my available therapists. A search will tell me the available appointment times that meet that criteria. If I want to schedule my patient, for an example, on this appointment date and time with this therapist, I just simply click the appropriate box and then hit the Schedule button. The system will try to confirm that information again, where I can click the Book button. Back in the scheduler, that patient will show up in the appropriate date and time that I booked them for. I can also run a report for my waitlist through the Reporting drop-down list, Scheduling section, and the Waiting List section. The next topic we'll talk about now is payments, reversing payments, editing payments, reversing and editing charges. On the Activities by Service screen of this particular patient, we're going to pretend that the service date entry for October the 2nd is incorrect. Let's pretend that the method of payment used was incorrect. This should have been Visa instead of MasterCard. We can simply flag the payment line, go to the Edit pencil, and choose the correct method. Say OK when complete. Let's pretend now we have a little bit more of a complicated situation. Let's pretend that the TheraBand tubing that we sold them on October the 1st, even though it was paid and invoiced, they need to return this item. So we need to reverse the payment or give them a refund for this particular item. If we want the entries to stay on the screen, but we want to show the actual reversal, we may consider entering separate entries as a negative amount. To enter a negative charge, we can go to the hand symbol, choose our date, choose our code, and we can enter a negative amount here. That negative amount will reflect on the top right-hand side of the screen. Add this charge to the file as normal and say OK. So we have a negative charge. Now we can enter a negative payment against that charge. Flag your charge, go to the payment screen, enter the method for the refund and a description as to why we are reversing these payments and charges. If you need to produce an invoice or receipt for these transactions, as normal, indicate the box for producing an invoice and a receipt. You can preview this before you give it back to your patient's file. It should show the reversal and the reason as to why you are refunding the patient. On our Activities by Service screen then, we will see the original transaction, which we haven't changed. We've just entered the reversal or refund transaction by entering a negative treatment and a negative charge. This will also ensure that any compensation amounts have been adjusted appropriately. Initially, we may have compensated the therapist for the sale of the product. Now we are reversing that compensation through a negative payment and negative charge. Let's pretend now that our situation is that the patient purchased an item, but the check they gave us for method of payment has been received NSF. In that case, my original entry I don't want to change, but I want to record that this payment via check is no longer valid. We need to reverse the payment. We can flag the actual payment line directly in our Activities by Service screen, and then go to the Actions drop-down list at the top of your screen. Choosing Next Reverse Payment will allow us to record the method we are reversing, and a potential reason or explanation as to why we are reversing this particular payment. Clicking the OK button next will record those entries on the screen. So our original entries remain, and now we have a reversal of our original payment with an explanation. This account, this transaction, becomes outstanding again. The amount due goes back to the $5 mark in this case, which reflects the amount due at the top of the screen. Okay, let's talk now about email notifications. The scheduler can send out email reminders or notifications to your patients in advance to remind them of their upcoming appointments. To set that up, we need to go to the Settings drop-down list and then customize email appointment notification from there. The first part of the screen will need to indicate per location the email address that you're using, the full clinic name, and any options or modifications that you want to make to the subject, header, or footer lines of the reminder emails. The technical setup is in the background under Email Account Settings. You need to indicate the outgoing email server, the port, the username, and password. Store the information by clicking OK when complete. Now you're ready to start using the function. If you prefer to individually select particular appointments that you want to email reminders for, you can go to the date and time in your calendar, find your client, and right-click on their appointment. If you choose email notification for the appointment from here, you will be sending one email notification for this particular appointment. If it was sent successfully, you will receive the message that you see on screen. Remember, in order for that message to be sent, the patient must have an email address in their profile of information. You will also notice that once the email has been sent, a new symbol will appear on your scheduled appointment. The white envelope on the appointment indicates that an email notification was sent. Another way to send emails would be to send group or batch emails. To do that, we can do so under the Actions drop-down list, selecting Email Appointment Notifications from here. Choose our date range. So for an example, if we'd like to send all patients that have an appointment on Monday at all of our locations an email reminder, we can do so from this screen directly. Once you click the email indicator, this will be sending all emails for all appointments that have scheduled appointments for Monday. You can preview the report and it will give you a list of all the emails that were sent. If there's no appointments, the system will notify you as such. The email that your patient will receive will look something similar to this. Remember, there is a setting under your Customize Schedule section and the Appointment Cell section. If you do not wish to send all future appointments when sending email reminders, meaning you just want to send the reminders for the specific date ranges, even if you right-click on your appointments, you need to indicate so by ticking the appropriate box. Another option that's available in our system is the Customize Phone Call Appointment Notifications. That is a paid service, and you can email our support department anytime for further information. The next topic is some day-end procedures that you may want to implement at your clinic. Day-end procedures are very similar to weekend or month-end. The date range are the only things that really might change. Looking at our schedule for today's date then, it looks like most of our patients have gone through the complete process. So let's start running some reports now to make sure that we're balanced. The first report I tend to run is under the Reports section and then under the Operations section. The Daily Reconciliation Report is one of my favorites. Simply enter the date range. Even though this report is called a daily reconciliation, you can change the date range to include more than one day. Choose your locations, and remember that the details of information here are asking you very specific ways to show referrals. Do we want to show referrals by the contact date, the referral date, or the assessment date? Those are three very different and specific fields entered under the patient profile. The preview will recap what has happened within the day. The first part of the report will show a revenue summary, all the treatment codes entered. The second part of the report looks at the calendar. The scheduler reflects all therapists that had appointments that were scheduled and whether those appointments attended, canceled, scheduled, no-showed, and so on. The payment summary indicates all payments received and should balance with what payments you have on hand. The Billing Reconciliation section may have two lower sections on the report. The first is showing the following patients who attended that had a balance on their account that might not have paid. The second part of that report is what you don't typically want to see on this daily reconciliation report. This report is indicating it thinks we may have missed billing this patient or missed entering charges for this patient. If we go back to the scheduler, why that patient is appearing on the report is because they have a completed status. They're not marked as canceled or no-showed, yet it does not see a hand symbol. It does not see that we've entered a charge against the patient's name. Therefore, it thinks we may have missed them for the day. The second report I tend to run is also under the Report section, under the Operations section again, and this time it's called the Revenue Report. The Revenue Report can be run for any date range. This is the same report that you would run at the end of the week or the month. You would just simply change the date range. If I'm looking for specific billing information, if I'm looking, especially in our US clients, to make sure that we've entered the diagnostic code or modifiers that are required, I may tick the box that says Show Injury-Related Information. Choose any other particular criteria you want to run the report for and do a preview. This report should gather all patient information that's been entered in terms of charges, units, diagnostic and modifier codes, the amounts, and who the charges are made to. If you notice something on this report that is incorrect, perhaps we're missing a modifier on one of the codes, this is when you would go back into the patient's Activities by Service screen, edit that transaction, and change whatever you need. The third report that I tend to run at the end of the day is under the Reports and Financial section. That report is called the Payment Journal. It's a journal entry of every payment received in the clinic for that particular date and time. Again, you can change your date range at the top of the report. Choose your criteria and click the preview. The criteria that I've chosen for this report not only shows me all the payments that have been recorded today, it also shows me any payments that have been deleted from the system through a strike-through. This report should balance the cash, Visa, MasterCard, or payment methods that I have on hand. The middle part of this report, called the Summary of Payments Received by Methods, is summarizing each payment by the method. One of the reports you want to run at the end of the month especially is the Accounts Receivable by Invoice report. This is listed under your Reports Financial section, Accounts Receivable by Invoice. This will show you up to whatever date you choose in this particular area. I always like to choose the current date to ensure that any transactions that have currently happened are reflected on the report. This will show any invoices that have been submitted as of this date that are still outstanding. On this report, you can choose many different funnels. You can include client notes, you can include specific contact log categories, include only specific divisions of patients and locations, and so on and so forth. So make sure you choose the appropriate information you want the report to reflect. The preview should then show us all patient invoices, both payer and patients, that are outstanding, how long they've been outstanding, and the amounts. This is a great report to run on a monthly basis so that you can keep track of any outstanding accounts receivables. Another report to run is also under the Financial section, the Unbilled Services report. This report would reflect any services in the system that are yet to be billed. So you would run this report after you think you've done all your billing. If I run the report for the current date and do a preview, this should reflect any services still outstanding in the system that need to be invoiced. Another report I like at the end of the month is under the Operations section, called the Provider Performance Summary. For whatever specific date range, the Provider Performance Summary will reflect performance information per therapist for that time frame. We're looking at the scheduler, we're looking at items that have been charged and billed, payments that have been received, cancellations and no-shows, and putting those into percentages. Another report that your accountant might be interested in is under the Financial section, the General Ledger Posting and Audit Trail. For whatever date range you choose, this report will reflect the accounting general ledgers and the debits and credits required for financial software. The system offers many comprehensive reports. For a list of all the reports, simply contact our support department and we'd be happy to send you a sample and a detailed listing of what each report entails. Thanks so much for joining me today on our general introduction as to some advanced features within our system. We hope you've enjoyed this.